The clarity of non-duality. One quality of non-dual realization is there's a crystal clarity to the boundless nature of phenomenon. This is definitely glimpsed in awakening, especially a deep awakening. The experience or sense of boundlessness, no borders, no boundaries, everything sort of being one. But with that initial shift, it is largely experienced in consciousness or in the pure sense of I, a pure sense of being. So it's still a sort of reflection of the non-dual actual world, which is not a world. It's not dimensional. This is so hard to talk about in an accurate way. And yet when it clarifies itself, it's so remarkably clear and obvious that it couldn't be other than this. So when this shift occurs, or when the construct of self apart from the phenomenal world dissolves, there's a clear and undeniable knowing that this is the only possible way it could be, as far as the way the senses are experienced. Or that this is so primary and fundamental because you're experiencing yourself as the sound, the colors and forms, the sensations. But when I say yourself, it's not the heady self, and it's not even the universal consciousness self. It's the purity of existence. It's not you. It's just seeing that what was taken to be you was a reflection in consciousness of the non-dualistic, vividly clear, not in one particular part of space, sense world. This is extreme intimacy, but it's also not a big deal. It's not a mind-blowing, mystical, expansive experience. It's just so. So one way of saying what this is to say that what is clearly experienced directly in the first shift, or first awakening, which is a sort of boundless identity, is now felt and experienced in every sense perception. But it is the sense perception. It's not an awareness of it. That's the key difference, is the awareness is no longer suggesting you as the experiencer, even if you're merged with the experience, like in consciousness. But the awareness is the sense phenomenon. They're one and the same. The only way the sense phenomenon can be is awareness, and the only way the awareness can be is the sense phenomenon. You could say they're interpenetrated or intermixed, but they're not even really two inseparable things. They're just a sort of ecstatic union. So how do we investigate this if it's not our ongoing experience? Well, first of all, that initial shift is almost always required. So that's what I generally point people to if they haven't worked through that initial identity obstruction of the mental self. But once that shift has occurred and you start to come face to face with intense experiences, repressed emotions, distorting beliefs, and a lot of fluctuation and change in consciousness, then it's a good time to start working at this. It's always good to continue to do the emotion work and the shadow work, to be ruthlessly honest with yourself about what you're experiencing, whether it's an emotion, an avoidance pattern, a sensation, a belief. So that work is imperative, and I wouldn't recommend skipping over it. But at some point, you'll become very curious naturally about the senses. So then is a good time to start to remind yourself of what it feels like to inhabit the sense fields. This means just hearing. Let your attention flow into the hearing and notice only hearing. Notice when the attention bounces back into thought and starts talking about what you're hearing or whether you're doing it right. Those are thoughts. So then redirect attention back into the hearing and notice that. Time and space start to distort a bit when the hearing is, when we give ourselves to the hearing. It might clarify a little bit. It might clarify a lot. It might sound like you're hearing from inside and outside. It might be really intriguing, like the most interesting thing you've ever experienced. Or it might just become slightly more clear. Either way is fine. Just remind yourself, only hearing. And then you can move your attention to the sensations. Just those sensations in the body. Just the tingling or the dullness or pressure, whatever is felt. And let that be what's guiding your experience fully. Don't reflect on it. Don't think about whether it's the right or wrong experience. Don't describe it to yourself. Just feel it. Let the feeling feel. Then you can move your attention to the visual field. Just the forms and shapes. This is usually a little more challenging at first, because so much of our brain is delegated to constructing a three-dimensional world, which is necessary for us to function for a time. But you can actually function just fine when that paradigm collapses, although it does take some adjustment on occasion. So the visual field, similarly, can just be that vivid experience of non-spatial, pure seeing, and that's it. Don't make conclusions. Don't take notes. Just see. And so on. So you can move your attention through the sense fields. And this is pretty powerful practice, especially when you've calmed the mind, calmed the body-mind, worked through some fixations, repressed emotional material. If it's hard to pick up these nuances of the sense fields, or you find yourself constantly being pulled into the mind, usually that means there's some more emotion work to do, or some fixating beliefs that are overriding your experience. So you can do some inquiry around beliefs, emotion work, acceptance, etc. It's also important to keep in mind that with this non-dual work, you're not trying to find something that's not there. You're not trying to find anything. You're simply relearning how the senses work, what they actually are, when we don't think about what they are. And we don't run back into the movie maker on top of our shoulders and start living in our own personal narratives again. We've done that for so long. So this is an exploration of what happens when we move out of that world and move into the world of the actual. So give yourself the permission to just let everything else go while you perform these practices. Let seeing be your teacher. Let feeling be your teacher. Let hearing be your teacher. These are the best teachers you'll ever find. All of life is waking you up. It's saying here, 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 here. It's just the most amazing thing that in the end, the senses are the best koans, the best tools, the best practices, the best Zen masters you could ever find. The sky, the sidewalk, a blade of grass, a cramp in your belly, an itch on your skin. Every one of those is an entry point. So enter. Move into the sense field and don't move back out.